Welcome to Fulfilling This Belly Sting. A show dedicated to aligning a journey to a better mental health using the understandings of the ancient Norse. Join us each weekday morning at 7 a.m. Alaska time. Someone's little girl, daughter, sister, girlfriend, fiance, wife, cousin, mother, auntie, grandmother, great grandmother, elder, disappears, shattering, a family, a community, the world. There is something we can all do. Remember them. Look at that.
God Morgan and happy Thursday to you. I hope this week has gone amazing, and I look forward to continuing this week, and hopefully your weekend will be as wonderful as your week has been. Hopefully you've got the energy exchange and things have gone your way. Before we get started today, I want to give a huge shout out, as always, to all the platforms that support the show. Thank you so much. And thank you to you, because you have supported our show and visited with us. I can only begin to express my appreciation for those of you who have liked, followed, subscribed. If you haven't had the opportunity yet, by all means, mash one of those buttons on whatever platform you're on. Like, follow, and subscribe to us. And that way we can get out. We can get this distribution, that's the word I was looking for, get this thing going out to whoever may need it. I want to also give a huge shout out to newrealitytv.com. New Reality TV is a streaming channel dedicated to different perspectives of our spiritual path that can help us to really expand our mind, obtain and maintain a better mental space. So check them out. As always, my webpage, norsewhispers.com. There you can find all the information about me, my message, my teachings, the shows, and certainly many other things, including for those of you who may have questions that you just can't seem to find an answer to. By all means, visit, throw it out there, and let's have a discussion about it. This morning, our live chat is on Facebook and TikTok. So if you do have a question there, by all means, put it in either of those two. Finally, before I get started, for those of you who may have a few extra coins, feel free to drop them in the tip jar. Every little bit helps to getting this message out, whether it be across these electrical airways or across in person as we travel across the state, the country, and sometimes even the world. So by all means, feel free to drop them in there. Today we're talking about the strength of Thor. Now, many have said that, Thor is super strong, but he wasn't super bright. Well, I'm going to disagree with that, because you can't be super strong without having a level of mental dedication. We know, for those of us who have visited the gym and worked out and done all the exercise things, we know it takes a level of dedication, particularly those who have gone to an elite level, to an upper level, and we're super powerful physically. We know that we've dedicated our minds to doing this. Now, this goes, many of us set New Year's resolutions as an example, and then we say, we're going to go to the gym every day, we're going to eat healthy, we're going to do this, and then by mid-January, we're already finding excuses to get out of it. That is the weaker side of our minds, and it's the way our mind works. And so what we have to do in many cases, as we get started in dedicating our mind, becoming strong, building up that mental strength, is that we're going to kind of fake out our mind, and we're going to kind of set these parameter controls in our environment that kind of helps us to to proceed. So as an example, if we wanted to begin an exercise regime and we said, we're going to go every weekday just before lunch. Well, firstly, maybe setting an alarm to do that. Secondly, I find is getting someone else who is committed, and they're willing to go with you, and then poof, now you've got this kind of environmental control that helps us to kind of drive our decision, right? So we've made a decision to be healthy as an example, and then we're going to have this other person inadvertently kind of help drive our dedication as we build up that mental strength, as we build up a habit. So what's a habit? A habit is a physical response to a mental alarm clock, right? So we've set this as a priority, and our physical body then just kind of takes over. It becomes almost natural, second nature, if you will. So when we're talking about building this strength of mind, we need, for those of us who may not have super strong, we make a decision and we stick to it, we need other controls that can help us to do that. And there are plenty out there. Now, I gave a few examples. Obviously, if we're wanting to be physically fit, getting people to kind of spend time with people that we want to talk with, maybe as we're walking the track. We can join with them and have pleasant conversations while we're doing our physical exercise. This is beginning a habit, and we continue that, right? So they, just in the fact that they want to go exercise, or that they're capable and willing and wanting to go, they're kind of helping to drive you. Now, obviously, as time goes on, you may invite other people and again, this is an example, but it's a matter of setting external controls to help us to make this decision. Now, there are some things that we're going to make up our mind about, and we're going to lock it to that, and it'll never change, right? So we've decided today is the day we're going to stop smoking, and we're going to set our mind to it. Now, for those of you who have stopped smoking, you know that those first couple weeks are a little dicey, because your physiological response is wanting to kind of keep that old habit in motion, right? And so now we're saying no, and we're putting up our denial walls for the influential energy that's going to try to convince us otherwise. We're going to put up those denial walls, and we're going to, we know if you've done this, you know that those first couple weeks you need all the help, these kind of external, I call them external controls, but external pieces that maybe help us to stay with this decision, right? This is the strength of mind. It comes in all flavors, and it comes in every aspect of our lives, whether that aspect be when we're surrounded by negative energy, we decide to be positive. We decide to be joyful, happy, harmonious, right? In just this environment of negativity and toxicity, we decide to be positive. We set our minds to being positive, and we lock it in there. Put up those denial walls. We're going to deny the influential energy that's going to try to direct us back to maybe a life of negativity and toxicity. We're going to deny those, as we try to go forward, as we focus our minds on denying this other energy. It's a superpower that you have, that we all have, right? All cognitive beings are capable of doing this. Now, a lot of people say, well, you could just think, animals just do what they do. You're right. Many of other life forms here on Midgard all have this ability to accept life the way it is. It just is. So whatever happens, it just is. There's no point in kind of rationalizing it away. There's no point in making up excuses or answers or just nothing. It is what it is. And so in a lot of cases with, thinking about our cognitive thought process that occurred like roughly 154 to 64,000 years ago, somewhere in there, we got this thing called cognitive thought, where we have this guy, between these guys, inside there, we have this thing called the brain, and the brain is capable of cognitive thought. Cognitive thought allows us to analyze, to look at the outcomes, to kind of survey it in just so many ways. But most importantly, what cognitive thought allows us to do is to break things down to a level at which we can understand. So if we take a big emotion as an example, and we're getting hit with this big emotion, maybe the loss of a loved one, we can look at it, and now with cognitive thought, we can kind of chunk it down a little bit. We can look at just the loss of a reading partner or a friend, or we can begin to break it down instead of this huge mountain of overwhelming emotion, which has a tendency to kind of blind us. And it happens. Our sheath is only so big, and when we get hit with these big emotions, those big emotions have a tendency to fill that. My ancestors called it the sheath of truth, but we really have the potential to fill that rascal up. And what happens then is that we block out the little bit of cognitive space that we have that allows us to think our way through it. So it's kind of like blind rage or any other kind of emotion that really paralyzes us. It's paralyzing us because we don't have that cognitive space, right? And our brain is almost frozen. And then in some cases, as we've mentioned before, we see where this emotional energy is kind of overflowing this sheath. And this is where you're going to get your physiological symptoms, your anxiety attacks, your panic attacks, your blackouts, your vomiting, when the physical body is actually responding to this overwhelming emotion. This is overflow of that sheath, and it definitely means most likely is that we have zero or very little cognitive space to chunk this thing down, to chunk this emotion down. So super important that we maintain that cognitive space, and that goes to our decision, and i.e. our mental strength is maintaining that cognitive space irrelevant of what's coming at us. Just whatever, any kind of emotional response that we've received now from our heart, we can process and we can look at and go, okay, wait, stop, hold. I need to think about this a second. Chunk. Okay, now we can move forward. And now we begin to process the individual emotions involved, because now we can chunk it down. And this is so critical when we talk about mental space. We talk about people just overwhelmed, and they're just and sometimes paralyzed by this emotional just overflow. This emotional overflow is caused when our sheath of truth can't process the biochemistry that we've created within our heart. So what's going to happen here, and again, this is all a visualization. When my ancestors were explaining how we interpret life, they really kind of used things that they knew. So, as an example, we talk about the filtering behind on the eyelids, behind the sensory input. We talk about this filtering like a window. And in this window, though, the glass is kind of contorted a little bit. And it's contorted based on what is our mood, right? So if we're in a grumpy mood or we're in a good mood, it tilts the glass a certain way. This is the immediate processing of that imagery that we're receiving through our eyes. This then drops down to our heart through this thing called the well of the self. The well of the self is, again, going back to our story of my ancestors, where they spoke of a water well, half filled with water, and at the bottom were these beautiful mosaic of rocks. And this beautiful mosaic of rocks was simply our intrinsic values, our virtues, those things that we held dearly that made us us. And those were laid out in a beautiful pattern at the bottom of this well. And as the energy came down from our window here through this well to the bottom, where it went through the rocks, it was then converted to biochemistry. Now, of course, according to my ancestors, they didn't really use the word biochemistry. They used the words feelings. This is where this energy is converted to feelings. I know, kind of using modern science, it's the biochemistry. We're going to release hormones from the heart into the bloodstream. This release of hormones is a natural part of your function. It is what makes you you. That energy or that biochemistry then comes up to this sheath of truth, where it's then converted back into energy, back into a neuro energy that's transmitted through the nerves of the brain. And as this energy grows, it's going to fill up the sheath. So if we're living inauthentically, we haven't gone all the way through the well, we kind of bailed out the side, that's living inauthentically. And when we do that, we create silt along the bottom of the sheath, right? So that's space that we can't use to process this emotion. The emotion, as it grows, like that expanding foam you see on TV, as it expands, this energy, it's going to fill up as much space as it needs. If the cognitive space, if we have enough silt, that expanding energy is going to expand into this cognitive space, taking away our ability to think, our ability to process, our ability to break this down. So it's super important that we maintain that space above all else. We have to maintain that space. All right, we're going to take a real quick break. When we come back, I want to just finish out the thought process and the strength, talking about the me gate, because this is really where your mental strength is going to come into the mix, and it's a very powerful tool that we all have. It really helps us to minimize our stress and certainly the physiological overflow that we're seeing in many of societal interactions. So let's take a real quick break. We'll be right back.
In the air. The time is now.
We're all waking up.
We're waking up.
We're all waking up.
It's all shifting.
New vibrations.
It's you.
It's you.
It's me.
It's all of us.
Together.
A new time.
A new day.
A new energy.
A new energy.
New reality.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
newrealitytv.com.
Thank you so much for taking that quick break, and thanks for joining us again as we're talking about the thought process and where our mental strength really comes into play. And I want to say thank you for all of you who have joined me on the TikTok chat and or the Facebook chat. Thank you so much for your comments, and I am most honored that you have joined me. Today, we've been talking about the thought process, and we're kind of most of the way through it, in that we've reached the sheath of the truth, as my ancestors have described it. And beyond the sheath of truth is the gate. That's right, the gate. Now, my ancestors call it the me gate. And the me gate is where we get to decide. We get to decide what energy we're going to allow through into our memories, right? So, because it's going to have some much larger ramifications after it passes through the me gate, because there's a couple other little processes, but very important ones. So as this energy comes to the me gate is kind of a slotted gate where the imagery can come through, or the imagery and the assigned energy. Because remember, now we've taken a snapshot from our eyes, right? It's gone through this whole process of going through our heart, and now it's back up in our brain, and it's going through. So we have an image, and attached to that image is an emotion. It's an emotional state, good or bad. And that's all perception, and it's all relative. But it could be a negative or a positive energy that's attached to this image. Now, as it comes through the me gate, we get to decide. That was a really horrible thing that just happened. Or I can look at it from another perspective and say, yes, it was a horrible thing, but I'm going to move past it. I'm not going to let that drag me down. I'm not going to let that energy, just drown me. I'm just not going to do it. I have that ability. I have that power. I have that choice here at the me gate. And I can say, you know what? The imagery can come through, but the energy doesn't. So I bring in the image, and I drop the emotional energy attached to it and assign a new one. And I say, I'm going to be positive. I'm going to be happy, joyful, harmonious, whatever, content, right? So I'm going to assign that energy now to it before it goes into my memories. Now, before it goes into my memories, it's going to have 3 very important tasks that it will do. The emotional state that passes through the me gate, that's on the other side of the me gate. We've made the choice, we've made our decision, or we've just allowed it to happen. Those are your 2 choices with the me gate. A lot of times we simply, okay, I'll just feel this way, right? We just allow it to happen. But then there are other times where we decide that we are going to focus and we want to be happy. We want to be joyful, peaceful, content. And that's what the energy that we assign. So when that energy comes out of the me gate with this potentially new energy assigned, it's going to send 3 signals. The first one is, remember the window, the filter? We're going to adjust that. We're going to set that to our new mood, right? Whatever the energy was coming out of the brain is how we're going to see the reality going forward. That's the first thing. Then it's going to send another signal. Remember the well of the self? And in the well of the self, I said it was half filled with water. Well, if the energy that we've assigned now is joyful and happy and content and harmonious, we're going to clear that water. We're going to make sure that that water is free of silt and dirt, and that this energy can transmit directly from our filter up here to the rocks at the bottom without interference. So it's clean water, it's still water, so it's nice and clear for the signal to go through. Right? That's the second thing. The third thing is, for those of you who understand the aura, is that we are going to adjust the frequency of our aura border. Now, all this simply does is it sets up the aura to allow interactivity with other entities, whether those other entities be attached to other physical other physical beings, life, or not, whether they be just spirits and deities and the remainder of existence. All of these, this border along our aura is what allows our interactivity between these other entities. When our border is set in a low kind of ocean wave kind of pattern, we have a tendency to be more friendly and more approachable and more appreciable. I mean, we really we make friends easier when that border is nice and easy. Why? Because a lot of borders can interact with that. So if another person, as an example, were to have a border that's a little bit faster, a little bit choppier waves, if you will, we can still kind of mix a little bit and we can still be friends a little bit. But if your border is super high frequency, which means it's like zigzag, super high zigzag, it's very hard for other people, other entities, to communicate, deities, spirits, and or other physical forms. These are the people when we go into a room. Have you ever noticed when you go into a room and there's just one or two people that you kind of go, yeah, I'm going to steer clear of those. I don't need that energy, right? You guys have all been there. This is their border being at a very high frequency, right? So it's bumping up against yours, and your aura can't pass into theirs, so that they're kind of stuck, right? So this is what causes all that, is the way we think and feel. Now, the amount of processing that we're doing, how many images and how much thinking and how authentic we are and how many different abstract thinkings we got going on, is what creates the clarity or the fogginess within the aura, which is another show altogether. But suffice to say, if we have that thought process going on, we know how difficult it is to communicate. We have a much more difficult time communicating with the deities, communicating with the spirits, communicating with other humans. Even our pets may note the difference because they can see and feel our aura. So the idea is, and that's really where meditation kind of plays a big part in our lives, is that when we meditate, we clear up our thinking and drop all those thoughts, and that clears up the aura, thereby allowing our spiritual entity to communicate with the spiritual realm as at a whole, right? So super beneficial. So our me gate is really where we can donate and dedicate and really get into managing our mind, managing the way we think, managing the way we interpret the reality at which we live. So the me gate is your superpower to adjust any situation that you incur to whatever you want it to be. This is the strength of mind, right? So this is where we're drawing upon the power and the superpower, if you will, of Thor to come into our lives and dedicate ourselves to saying, I am in control up here. I'm not just allowing things to wash over me. I am driving this ship. I am the master of this vessel, and I'm going to get to my destiny. All right? So that's really the strength of mind. And Thor is a wonderful example that shows us that we can be strong up here. We can be strong in our strength too, but we can be strong in our decisions, in our ability and willingness to be joyful and harmonious. All right. And we all have that power. So give yourself some credit. If you find yourself struggling, you've made a decision, you're going to get fit, you're going to quit smoking, you're going to quit drinking, whatever the case may be, this is what I'm going to do. Know that you have it in you to make that decision and to stick to that decision. To pad the way for yourself. Sometimes it's very beneficial for us to add extrinsic controls, like we mentioned in the beginning of the show, where we had other people that were joining us for our walk. These are extrinsic controls that will help to drive us to obtaining our mental strength. All right? So think of it as a workout and a workout buddy that's going to help us to get that mental strength we need to hold and keep this decision, whatever it is, right? So all of the decisions in our lives will fall into the same category. All right, so today we celebrate the Norse god Thor, a wonderful god that gives us so much, both extrinsically and intrinsically. So today I want you to think about those decisions that you've made that, well, like New Year's resolutions, 2 weeks in and you're already kind of finding answers and excuses to get out of it, right? So make a decision, stick to that decision, seek harmony, seek peace, seek love. You can never go wrong with those. Well, certainly those three, but there are plenty of others as well, all right? So embrace those and use your mental strength to be who you are. All right, my friends, I will see you very soon. And for tomorrow, when we're going to talk about, that's right, we're going to talk about Freya, my favorite of all the goddesses, as she exemplifies the movement of energies, particularly in her case, very powerful in magic. And she was the goddess of love, way over here, and war, way over here. And yet she knew how to manipulate the energies of the cosmos to affect both of those states. So super powerful and super good to know as we get ready for our weekend to recharge, rejuvenate, and get back to life. All right, my friends, I wish you the very best of Thor's Day. We will see you again tomorrow where we will embrace the goddess Freya. Love and light, my friends.
Watching for Felina's Belly Snake, a special production of Whispers of the Norse. Brought to you by the Alaska Wolf Hefnar in South Central Alaska. Guidance and wisdom, courtesy of an ancient Celtic Norse shaman. Thank you so much for joining us today.